What is up, guys? Welcome into episode number 103 of the Loose Sports Talk podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Hannaford. My co-host, Daniel Hinkamp, is here, and a very special guest joining us on the pod from Jupiter, Florida. Listen, if you've been watching or listening to Cardinals games this spring and you've heard a semi-familiar voice that sounds like and maybe looks like even a younger version of Chip Caray, well, that's because it's his son, Stefan Caray. Stefan is a fourth-generation Caray broadcaster and is called games on ESPN, MLB.com, and most recently, quite a few games during the Cardinals spring training. Stefan, first off, appreciate you taking the time. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Anything for you, Ethan, and I'm so pumped. And I know you guys are under the STL Sports Central moniker, so they've been so great to me and getting to do some work with them. So I appreciate the intro, but I think you're fooled about my dad. It's just the hair gel. The hair gel is totally confusing you.
Yes, we love it. We love picking on Chip anytime that we get the opportunity to do so. So listen, before we jump into some Cards talk, this is surprisingly the first time that we've had you on the Loose Sports Talk podcast. Which seems like a crime in itself, but we appreciate you waiting and being so patient for us. But before we talk Cards baseball, I want to talk just a little bit about the family lineage and the history that goes into the Caray broadcast family. It's not much of a secret. Harry, Skip, Chip, your brother. How early, let me ask you, did you, maybe it was the same time as your brother Chris, but for you, how early did you know that you wanted to jump into what has now become the family business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think it was as early as my brother Chris. Chris was very interested in it in high school. I was a lacrosse player. And when I would go to games when my dad was covering them, I always wanted to be a player as a kid. I wanted to be the guy out there making the plays at third base, being like, in my case, Chipper Jones or Freddie Freeman or Brian McCann, the amazing players that I grew up watching. And it wasn't until I realized, oh, wait, you're not a good enough athlete to go make it as a major leaguer or as a professional lacrosse guy. Maybe you need to start thinking about a real career. So it was early on in college. I guess late in high school, sort of the seed was planted, but early in college, I decided this is what I wanted to do, and things have looked up ever since.
Stefan, your dad grew up here and has discussed how special it is to be back here calling games for the Cardinals. You don't have the hometown connection to the city that he does, but it has become clear that your love for the organization and the city is very large as well. What about St. Louis and the Cardinals, or what is it about St. Louis and the Cardinals that makes it so special to you?
I think for me, just looking at it, at least through my dad's eyes, and I know this is kind of dodging the question a little bit because you're right, I didn't grow up in St. Louis, but the time that I've spent there, it's been so incredible with the amazing people that work for the Cardinals, people like Ethan, people like yourself that have been so welcoming to me with really you guys didn't have to do that, but you've made us feel like family. And I hope that we've done the same. For me, I think seeing my dad after walking away from the Braves and seeing the shift in his mindset and seeing how revived and excited and happy he is to come to the ballpark every single day, that's something that I'm eternally grateful for. He's so rewarded and fulfilled by this job. He's so rewarded and fulfilled by the logo. And for me to get to be loosely involved with the organization is a tremendous honor because we know how great the Cardinals are. You guys have been fans your entire life. I've been a fan and an onlooker for a long time, but not nearly to the degree that you guys have been. They changed the way that my family perceives the game of baseball. They changed the way that I perceive how this job is supposed to be done, and they've changed the way that I have looked at my expectation for what a coworker, an organization, and a fan base should do for their team. So there's nothing more that I could say about the Cardinals except they are the gold standard. Their fans are the gold standard, and I'm just lucky to be a part of it.
It wasn't long ago that you made your major league debut last year with the Cardinals, with your father, with Brad Thompson, and you've been able to continue to work on the craft throughout this spring training. I know you called games last spring training as well. How special has it been for you? I know that your dad was able to, for a period of time, call games with Harry well back in the day. I believe he even for a brief time called with Skip as well. How special has it been for you to have this time, regardless of where you end up, knowing that you'll be able to look back on your career and say, I called games with Dad at one point?
It's just insane. It's insane to think about. Not very many people get to ever make their major league debut, and I got to do it with my dad in the booth and then my brother next door. These are things that just don't happen. And I'm fortunate enough to say that memory will be something that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. At 26 years of age, I know that I will never forget that. And there are things that happen in your life like that are few and far between. I just got to give all the credit to the Cardinals organization and to Tony Simakaitis and to Bill Cochran and Brian Shapiro, Tom Mee, all the amazing people in production with at that point FanDuel and also with MLB TV for allowing me to be able to do this. It's something that I hope I can reward them back with in the future, but this is it's surreal. It is really surreal getting to have been able to do this with my family. But now it's also the question of, okay, I've done more games with my family members than with other people. maybe I should try and branch out. Maybe it'll be more exciting when I do it with somebody who doesn't share a blood type with me.
Well, there's just so many carries. That's why. I mean, basically half the teams in the league, it feels like, are carries now. No, in all seriousness, appreciate you letting us in a little bit to just how special the start of your broadcasting career has been. But let's go ahead and let's talk about the team on the field that you've been covering now for the past month or so. Listen, we know it's a unique time in Cardinals history right now. It's not very often that the Cardinals have to go through rebuilds. Regardless of that, though, I think a lot of people would probably tell you that they're a little bit surprised by the countenance, at least, that media members, that members of the organization are giving off from Jupiter, Florida. So I would love to hear just some of the pros and cons that you've been able to take away from this St. Louis Cardinals team and what to expect this upcoming year.
I think just from a perspective of somebody who's only been here on a working capacity for the last 2 seasons, hopefully this will hold some type of water. But last year to this year are night and day. Just the general atmosphere, the players' willingness to speak to the media, the access that we have, and everybody's pulling on the same rope. The culture that Chaim Bloom and Ollie Marmol and the DeWitts and everybody is encouraging is making it so easy to root for these guys and to be excited for what's to come in the future. Look, we know it's a bit of a rebuild year or a reset or whatever they want to call it. But I think fans are going to be happy that there's a clear direction that the team's going in 2026. I think in the past, this team has always known there's a responsibility to the fans to make it to the playoffs, whether or not that means you get knocked out in the wild card or in the NLDS or heck, even win the World Series. I think that the new shift in mindset is, are we going to be able to win the World Series? And if the answer is no, then some players are expendable. Some players you're able to trade away. Some players you're able to offload their contracts to other teams. That hasn't been the case in the past, and I like the aggressive approach that they're taking because you're getting back a lot of good young players. And there have been some players that have been big surprises in this spring camp, and that happens with a team where you have opportunity. Iron sharpens iron. There's more opportunity than ever before to go out and grab a roster spot. Some players that we thought were going to be on the opening day roster might not be on the opening day roster because of the WBC or because of a lack of their ability to compete in spring camp. We're going to get to see a new look Cardinals team in 2026. I don't know how many wins or losses that's going to generate, but what I do know is it's going to be exciting baseball night in and night out.
And we're going to talk about some of those players, what you've taken away specifically from different guys now. Just going to kind of jump into a back and forth. I want to hear your thoughts as to some of these different guys. And I want to start with one of the pieces that I think I've at least been the most excited about this spring training. And it's because of the revival to the fastball that we've seen from Dustin May. We know about all of the crazy issues that he had in previous seasons, most notably the esophageal tear, and how that impacted his strength, his ability to have the velo on that fastball that has made him so unique in previous seasons, or so special, I should say, in previous seasons, Stefan. Well, that fastball has returned, and all of a sudden, a guy that you felt like was a bit of a gamble going into the year for St. Louis to sign and to put down more money on him than they did anyone else. but what we've been able to see in spring training, I think, is pretty encouraging and has me excited for the product that Dustin May could provide. Your thoughts on what you've seen from the Cardinals, one of their newest starting pitchers?
Yeah, well, when we see him again today, I'm sure I'll have a more updated answer. But what I have seen so far has been fantastic. Again, the velocity on the fastball, there's so much life. The swing and miss stuff, you can tell that's one of the organizational shifts that we're seeing right before our eyes, right? In the past, baseball is a game of change, right? There are certain fads that are in and then they're out. Like the stolen base was gone for years, and now it's back. It used to be pitchers wanted to get the ball on the ground, let their defense make plays. Now that the shift is not allowed anymore, it's we want swing and miss stuff. So that's exactly what they've gotten. I mean, you can go down the list. Dustin May has got swing and miss stuff. We know that. He's got an overpowering fastball. He's got good secondary, tertiary pitches. But even in the other starters, right? Andre Palante, 11 strikeouts. Michael McGreevy, 11 strikeouts to just 2 walks. Matthew Liberatore, 14 strikeouts to just 1 walk. Kyle Leahy, 14 strikeouts to just 4 walks. They're keeping the walks down. They're keeping the swing and miss stuff up. And that's what we want. We want to have strikeouts. Yeah, that's going to elevate pitch count. But in an era of baseball where guys are going to go 5, maybe 6 innings to start, you don't mind that. You want them to be able to mow hitters down and get them out in 2 strike counts. That was an issue last year. And Dustin May, I think, is going to be one of those frontline starters for St. Louis. And what is the risk here? What's the risk, right? You're paying a lump sum to him, but you're about to pay that same amount, if not more, to Sonny Gray. You offloaded that contract. Now you get Dustin May, who, if he performs well enough and the Cardinals aren't in it, you can trade him for king's ransom at the deadline. And I think everybody knows that. I don't think anybody's mincing words that there's a genuine mutual understanding about what each party can get out of this arrangement. And it just motivates both sides to do better. And who knows? Maybe the Cardinals are right there in it. And Dustin May says, wow, they revived my career. I want to stay here. And you get a great starter that has had his tumult in his career, but could end up being a guy for St. Louis for years to come.
Still staying with the pitchers last season, Kyle Leahy, he was in the bullpen, and he was a very strong bullpen arm. You could see Ali going to him a lot as well. This year, he's transitioned to a starting role, at least in spring training so far. How has the trial run been as a starter in your eyes?
I thought it's looked great. I mean, outside of one start, he's been very, very good, very consistent in the zone. And again, throwing strikes. He's got a starting pitcher's repertoire. I mean, this guy can throw 5 pitches, 6 pitches. That's what you want. Again, sometimes you wonder if you have a pitcher that throws a starter's arsenal, is there overthinking happening when you only get 1 inning to work? You don't get to see those other pitches. You don't get to see hitters a second time through the order, third time through the order. Kyle Leahy is a guy that in the minor leagues was a starter, then moved to the bullpen and was one of your most effective relievers. This is what you do. I mean, I could name a couple of examples where it's worked out. Jack Leiter with the Rangers is one that comes to mind. Dre Jameson with the Diamondbacks. He was a starter, then a reliever, then they tried him at starter again. These guys should be able to be malleable and morph into whatever spot you need them to morph into. And I think Leahy's going to do a great job this season in whatever role the Cardinals put him in. Now, the question is it going to be a 6-man rotation? We don't know that yet. But I think Leahy's going to be entrenched and cemented in that rotation, whether it's 5 or 6.
I want to hop to around the diamond now. Nolan Gorman has had his share of opportunity throughout the past several years, and he's going to get plenty more in 2026, and he's going to be at his primary position, the hot corner at third base. Gorman has received more at-bats than any 2025 starter on the Cardinals roster, and he's made some offseason adjustments. He's been able to pack a punch. The walk rate's gone down. Strikeout numbers look good. Obviously, all of this is taken into consideration that it is a very small sample size in spring training, but it's a time where guys are making adjustments, and it's encouraging to see results. How do you think that some of these things we've seen from Nolan Gorman could carry into the regular season?
Well, the thing that I love the most is he's limiting the strikeouts. He's second on the team in home runs and RBIs, and we know that the power's there. We know that the offense is there. he has that. He has that potential that he's already tapped into once. He just needs to find it again. And you mentioned adjustments. I think in spring, just like the offensive players, the pitchers are doing the same thing, which is difficult as a hitter, right? You may come up to the plate and have a starting pitcher that's developing a new changeup, and it might be the first time he's ever throwing it, and you're not expecting to see it. How does he adjust to that? He's been great. He's learning the craft defensively at third base. He's swinging the bat well. He's pulling the baseball. He seems more in control of the strike zone. He's not expanding his zone as much as he did last year. So those are things that I like to see, especially as we get toward the end of spring training. He's one of those guys that, again, I think really wants to and needs to have a good year in 2026, along with guys like Jordan Walker. But he's doing everything he can in the hitting lab and the beautiful new facilities down here at Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium to make sure that he's ready for 2026 and putting his best foot forward for his future with the Cardinals.
You just touched on Jordan Walker, and it's kind of been a rough couple of years in St. Louis for Jordan Walker, and he's continued to navigate his swing mechanics this spring. What are you hearing on him as we approach opening day here?
Yeah, he spent the last 3 games in the hitting lab focusing on some things and keeping him in a controlled environment. And I really like the idea here is don't make it too much that he has to think about in a big game. Let's get him a clear path that he can go forward with and replicate in games instead of thinking about, okay, I'm going to test this out in game, or I'm going to test this out in game. Let him find a sweet spot in that hitting lab, get to the game, use that sweet spot, see if it works. And if not, we'll try something else. But again, I think he's 23 years old. I mean, I'm 26, and Lord knows I've made more mistakes than I can count in my 26 years of life. And to pass judgment on him would be, I think, incredibly unfair. Now, it's a performance-based industry. He knows that. He's been mature about the whole thing. And I think that what Mason Wynn said and what others have said around spring training is he's come in a lot more ready. His maturity level and his approach has gotten a lot better. And I think that it's going to pan out. I really do. I think he's going to be able to turn it around. It's just a matter of, can he get back to being comfortable? Just being comfortable. And people can sometimes conflate comfortability or comfort. Comfortability isn't actually a word. A level of comfort with complacency. I don't think those two are one and the same. Getting him comfortable at the plate means that he's very ready to replicate that swing over and over and over again. Defensively in right field, we could argue he had his best year defensively. So I don't think we're worried about that as much. But getting him at the dish, getting him to hit more than 6 home runs, and getting him to hit 240, 250 with some power, I think we're in a really good spot with him if we can get him there.
Speaking of comfortability, Nelson Velázquez has been about as comfortable at the plate in 2026's spring training as one could get. Stefan leading the team with 4 home runs, 333 batting average in his 33 at-bats. Yes, small sample size, but this was a position that in left field that was wide open going into the spring, with Lars Nootbaar not looking to be ready to go for the start of the season. And, Sajaysi's been at the World Baseball Classic. Fermin has been quiet at the plate. And in a lineup where there's very little power punch, getting Nelson Velázquez to come along and perform the way he has, I think it's not only do I think it's a spark and it's something to be excited about. I think that the Cardinals have found their opening day starter. Now, we don't know that for sure, but it seems certainly like it's heading in that direction, Stefan, does it not?
Yeah, I think he has a couple of advantages working in his favor, right? Right-handedness is one of them. The Cardinals are a very left-handed heavy team. The power aspect, I mean, we know the guy has how many major league plate appearances? It's over 500, but he's hit like 31 home runs. So in that sample size, you know that he could be a 20 home run guy if he plays the entire year, 20 plus, which is exactly what they're looking for. And the one that doesn't get talked about nearly enough is just looking at this spring, 3 strikeouts, just 3 strikeouts, right? We know he's going to hit the ball hard. That checks off the box, right? We know he's going to drive runners in. That checks off the box. Now, do we know he's going to hit for average over 130 games or 115 if you platoon him? We don't know that. But what we do know is he's hit for power pretty consistently when he's been up at the major leagues. Now, are you willing to sacrifice maybe some average for power? Absolutely. I mean, it's 2026. They do it all the time. Now, the old-time baseball people, kind of like myself, we don't love that. We love seeing a pretty batting average. But in a year like this, if he gives you 230, 25 home runs, and 70 runs batted in, I'll take that deal. I'll take that deal 10 times out of 10. Now, I think that at the beginning of the spring, they said he's going to have to hit his way onto the team. That's what he's doing. He's doing a great job. The other question presents itself. Who is the fourth outfielder? Who's the fourth outfielder? And it's still a very wide open competition, I'm sure. You have to think about 40-man roster spots. You have to think about how you make that work. But I would think, and I haven't heard anything that points in either direction, yes or no, but if I had to guess, Velázquez is probably the leader in the clubhouse, at least for one of those outfield spots, just because of his ability to hit for power from the right side.
Stefan Caray, appreciate the time as always. It's always a pleasure getting to chat with you. And man, we look forward to having you on soon and hearing you on the call as spring training continues on here in 2026.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate all that you guys do, and it's an honor to be on here, especially with you, Ethan, with our friendship. And it was a pleasure meeting you, man. And I hope that you guys have great shows for years to come.
Wow, kind words from the one and only Stefan Caray. Appreciate him as always. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick pause. When we return, some opening day projections right here on the Lou Sports Talk podcast. Welcome back to episode number 103 of the Lou Sports Talk podcast. We didn't have much of a chance to really intro what this episode was going to be about. Stefan Caray getting ready to broadcast the game down in Jupiter, Florida, so we wanted to get to him as quickly as possible. But we appreciate Stefan's time. Listen, I've grown pretty close with the Caray family. Blessed to say that, not in any sort of prideful way. Due to my time working in the Cards broadcasting booth the last couple of years, one of the sweetest parts of all of it has been able to get to know Chip, Chris, Stefan, their entire family. They have been so good to me and are so kind. So it's no surprise at all that as soon as I texted Stefan, he was all in on joining and shared some great insight as well as to what this Cardinals roster is going to look like. I thought it was pretty telling, real quick, Daniel, before we dive into the opening day projections. I thought it was pretty telling, even for a guy that, yes, like Stefan covered the team last year for STL Sports Central with us here. If you're watching us on YouTube last year, a decent amount. He called a couple of games in the booth with Chip. But this is a guy that's new to the organization, relatively new to the organization. And for him to say, it feels like there's a night and day difference between last year and this year, I think it's pretty telling for a guy that's as new around the organization as Stefan is to be able to pick up on that, because that means that it's even that much more clear, in my opinion, which is an encouraging sign that Stefan is telling us maybe that doesn't completely translate into the win category this year. Maybe it does. Maybe it just goes from, I don't know, 70 to 73, but maybe it's not the team winning 88 games this year, but I certainly think that could lead to on-field impact. It just won't be as flashing lights bright as it would be maybe in previous seasons. Regardless, I think there, even in a unique season like this, is reason to be hopefully optimistic for what the Cardinals are doing as the 2026 regular season nears, Daniel.
Yeah, it shows that the future is bright. That's the first thing so far that I've taken from all this, that there's a pretty bright future here in St. Louis. We just have to be patient because it's not going to happen right away. And we have the pieces. We have the Gold Glove shortstop Mason Wynn. We have the Silver Slugger bat and Alec Burleson that are returning, and we have Ivan Herrera, who hopefully will be even more powerful at the plate. Hopefully see him behind the plate once or twice to relieve some duties back there. But the night and day difference that like Stefan was talking about is super encouraging, at least for me, because coming into last year, I knew the season wasn't going to be great, but I thought it would be a little bit of a better season than we had, especially after we went on that run through the time of mid-June when we were stringing a lot of games together, almost got to 10 games above 500. So just before we get into the roster, my personal advice for Cardinals fans would be just the season, just enjoy the good and just try to block out the bad. It's a rebuilding season, and it's so much easier said than done. But we have a new general manager. There's some new faces on the bench as well, and just enjoy it. There's going to be a time when we string 4 or 5 games together, so enjoy that. And when it's bad, just be excited for the future.
And you said it, that will be easier said than done, but I agree to a certain extent. It's going to be hard to block out that bad because there's going to be a lot of it. But I think that what you have to take away from it, like you said, is what you're getting from some of these young guys, how they are progressing, how that bad is also going to benefit them to hopefully be better major league ball players down the road as well. It's an optimistic point of view, and I think that a lot of people are tired of optimism. But I think Chaim Bloom has given a reason to hit the refresh button on the levels of optimism, if that is fair. So anyway, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, so now we'll slide into the opening day roster. There's been a lot of talk surrounding that the past couple of weeks. We're 9 days away now from opening day in St. Louis, the unofficial St. Louis holiday here. So Ethan, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you think this opening day lineup's going to look like come next Thursday?
Yeah, and they still have some players, some roster spots to trim down. They're currently at 36 players. They have to be at 26 by opening day. So I'm just going to be talking through what I expect this 2026 opening day 26-man roster to look like, and what I expect them to trim down here a little bit down the stretch. Some of them are going to be obvious. Some of them are maybe a little bit more up in the air question marks, but without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with my starting pitchers. You know what? I'll just do my pitchers in general, and then we can dive a little deeper into the rotation and stuff in a little bit. My starting pitchers in no particular order are going to look like Kyle Leahy, Michael McGreevy, Dustin May, Matthew Liberatore, and Andre Palante. My relief pitchers will include Matt Swanson, Jojo Romero, Ryan Stanek, Gordon Graceffo, Riley O'Brien, George Soriano, who they traded for this offseason, Justin Brule, and Matt Pushard. Those are going to be my pitchers to start off the year. On the offensive side, we'll start off with the catchers. I have Ivan Herrera, Pedro Pajes, and Joel Pozo all being listed on the opening day roster. Yes, I have them carrying 3. My infielders listed include Nolan Gorman, Mason Wynn, J.J. Weatherholt, Alec Burleson, as well as Ramon Urias, and I have Thomas Saggese making the opening day roster. And finally, my outfield includes Nelson Velázquez, Victor Scott II, Jordan Walker, and Nathan Church. That is my opening day roster projection for the St. Louis Cardinals here, a little bit less than 2 weeks away from those Clydesdales trotting around the warning track at Busch Stadium.
We'll take it to the outfield too as well. There's been a lot of talks, especially surrounding the opening day left fielder. A lot of names thrown out there, surrounding such as Nelson Velázquez even is in the running for that as well. Who do you think is going to be the opening day left fielder to start for the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think that it's been set up to where it's going to be Nelson Velázquez. I mean, you look at what he's been able to do this spring. His power punch has been one of the biggest surprises, pleasant surprises for St. Louis. In 33 at-bats, he has 11 hits. He has 5 extra base hits. 4 of them are home runs. 6 walks, 3 strikeouts. Stefan talked about some of this stuff, but the .727 slug percentage has been very encouraging. The strikeout rate is pretty low at 7%, walk rate at 15%. Listen, it's no secret that when you look at this Cardinals roster, there's a lack of power. You have Ivan Herrera, who punched 18 home runs last year in his 100 games played. You have Nolan Gorman, who has shown power potential, power abilities in the past. He hit 27 home runs back in 2023. He's been more quiet at the plate in previous seasons, 2024 and 2025. But let's say, thinking optimistically, that Nolan Gorman finds his power again and Ivan Herrera continues at the pace that he did in 2025. What else do you have? Maybe J.J. Weatherholt punches 15. Maybe Mason Wynn hits 10. I have no idea what to expect from Jordan Walker at this point. I think that Nelson Velázquez, with all that being considered, could be almost an answered prayer to what the Cardinals lineup needs because there isn't a lot of power. And listen, I'm going to be quite frank. When Nelson Velázquez got signed, I didn't really think twice about it. I looked at a guy that has been able to pack a punch in his major league career, most notably with the Kansas City Royals. But outside of that, kind of almost a spring training filler is what it felt like to me. And obviously, that's never the front office is never going to not have reason for making these signings. And in the case of Nelson Velázquez, he had an opportunity to prove a point that the corrections that he made in winter ball were going to hold. And they have up to this point. Now, small sample size, that's how it is in the spring. But why not give it a go? Why not see what can happen from it? I mean, I think that the reward of if it works out with Nelson Velázquez is way higher than if it works out for Jose Fermin and Thomas Saggese, simply because he can hit the ball out of the ballpark, and those two guys, that's not really their game. So if Nelson Velázquez is to continue hitting, I don't want to say at the pace because I don't expect him to hit 330, but if he can continue to hit for slug and hopefully limit the strikeout numbers, then you have a real piece on your hands here that's also going to be really cost effective for the Cardinals. So I think, and Stefan mentioned that he's right-handed as well. The Cardinals are lefty heavy, so that also is a huge blessing. We expected, I think, to a certain extent, the Cardinals to add a right-handed outfield bat even after the Donovan trade, which was the last trade that they made this offseason. And they didn't do that. And it turns out that, at least as of now, it doesn't look like they needed to because of what Nelson Velázquez has been able to do. Obviously, there's a whole season of proving that needs to happen here. But I really like what I've seen from Nelson Velázquez. The window is open to prove yourself in left field, with Nootbaar being on likely to be on the injured list to start off the year. So why not give it a go? And the Cardinals need to be able to find more of these kinds of pieces, Daniel. I mentioned a couple of days ago on Card Central 365 on STL Sports Central that the Cardinals used to be so good at finding, whether it be via free agency or the draft or trade-wise, they used to be so good at finding that diamond in the rough or that guy that had been given up on that resurrected his career in St. Louis. The Cardinals, if they want to get back to their winning ways eventually, they need to be able to do that again because they're not going to be able to financially compete with the New York Mets, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Philadelphia Phillies, the New York Yankees. They're not going to be able to compete with those teams of Major League Baseball. They're going to have to get creative in how they find it. That's not to say that eventually Bill DeWitt isn't going to spend or that he couldn't be a top 12 spender in Major League Baseball, because that's what he has been throughout a large portion of his tenure as the owner of the St. Louis Cardinals. But it's never going to be as simple as that. He has to be able to find those diamonds in the rough. And Nelson Velázquez, I think, should be given the opportunity to prove whether or not he can be a diamond in the rough.
Sticking with the outfield for just another moment or so, obviously a starting day center fielder is going to be Victor Scott II, but another guy that's shown some flashes of excellence in the outfield has been Nathan Church. What do you think his role will be with this Cardinals team this year?
Yeah, I expect for Nathan Church to be the Cardinals' fourth outfielder, at least to start off the year. We saw Church for a stretch at the end of the 2025 season, and I thought that there were some good things that we saw. We know that he can do it defensively. We know he has the base running abilities. Didn't see the bat nearly as much. We saw it in very small bits and pieces, but we didn't see him succeed offensively for a long period of time. But you know what? There's a lot of guys that come up for the final third of a season and they are familiarizing themselves with Major League pitching. I think that he's looked pretty good. this spring. When you look at the numbers, obviously you're not living and dying by batting average, but he has 8 hits in his 28 at-bats, has a home run to go along with it. The slug is right below 430. He's drawing walks. He's not striking out very much. I think there's been some encouraging signs for Nathan Church, at least enough to give you confidence that he can be a 4th outfielder. And then from that point, I think it gets really interesting as to how you look at Jordan Walker and what his role will be. If what Stefan said is true with where Jordan Walker is at, which I believe it to be true, heard it in a couple of different spots, then maybe this is a year similar to last year where Jordan Walker, not because there's someone in front of him getting those opportunities, but because they're also doing a lot of work in the lab, maybe Jordan Walker gets more off days. Maybe he's doing a lot of critiquing in the cages and is maybe only starting 3 days a week. This is totally speculative. That I have no reason to believe this is going to be the case. I haven't been told anything. I'm just wondering if we could end up, as a result of Jordan Walker still trying to get comfortable at the plate, I wonder if we see a little bit more of Nathan Church than originally expected this year. I imagine that he will probably play a little more right field than we probably initially thought. Obviously, you want to get to a point where Nathan Church is having to fight for playing time, because if that's the case, it means Jordan Walker's probably hitting pretty well. We're going to have to wait and see on that, but I do expect Nathan Church to be the 4th outfielder, but also get a little bit more playing time than probably people think he will.
Before we jump ahead, Ethan, and start to get on the back end and wrap things up, are there any other topics that you want to touch on before we do that?
Yeah, I think that there's probably a couple of other things that could be mentioned real quick. I said Thomas Ajayci gets that final opening day roster spot over Jose Fermin. I don't have a good beat as to who will get that spot. Fermin has not done much to impress throughout the majority of spring training. I think he's actually gotten the most at-bats of anyone this spring. But Thomas Ajayci's gotten some of the least amount of at-bats because he's been playing with Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic. He'll be returning to the Cardinals very shortly, if not already. I think that Thomas Ajayci has a little bit more potential with the bat, which is why I gave the nod to him. But the Cardinals could very well look at that situation and say, we want him to get a few more at-bats, get a little bit more comfortable before we bring him up. And as a result, they could have Jose Fermin start the year with the team. Either one wouldn't surprise me, but I went ahead and went with Ajayci more so because I'm a little bit more optimistic about his future, long-term future with the club. We'll have to wait and see on that. The other one would be Joel Pozo making this roster. Some people might be surprised that the Cardinals are carrying 3 catchers or could carry 3 catchers. I'm not, and the reason being is that we don't know what exactly Ivan Herrera's role as a catcher is going to be this year. We don't know how often he's going to catch. What we do know is that he's going to fill and play some at the designated hitter spot this year, and depending on how often he does that, that leaves you with 2 catchers, excluding Herrera, who would be in the DH spot. So I kind of view it as 2.5 catchers because Herrera is going to be available to catch on some days, but there's also going to be a decent amount of days, I imagine, where he won't be available to catch, and in that case, Joel Pozo would be the backup catcher. I think that I see Pozo on days where Herrera is available to catch as a true bench bat. He has looked pretty solid offensively this spring. He came into spring training having lost over 30 pounds, wanting to continue to improve, and I think that he has done that this spring. So I think that he has proven worthy of the opportunity to make this roster. Would I prefer to see Jimmy Crooks on this opening day roster over Pozo? Yes, but I think we are going to see Crooks, one of the Cardinals' top catching prospects here, plenty in 2026. I just think that long-term, there's probably a little more benefit that to having Crooks on this roster than Pozo. But we'll have to wait and see how exactly that plays out. I do expect Pozo to fit in as a bench bat as well as a backup catching role on days where Ivan Herrera is going to be in the designated hitter spot. The final one, I guess, would be that I picked Andre Palante to be in the rotation over Richard Fitz, despite Fitz also having, I think, a pretty good spring. He's had 3 starts this year. One of them was bad. 2 of them were decent. I think that he showed us reasons to be excited for him. The velocity has been up compared to what it was last year. He's been more so in the 97 range on the fastball compared to last year being in the high 95s, which I think is a reason to be excited. Walked several batters in his last outing. Want to see that get fixed. But I don't think he walked any batters in his first 2. So, maybe that was a one-time thing. Andre Palante, on the other hand, he's done this before. He's familiar with pitching in the pros, and you've seen him have success at the major league level before. In my eyes, and we talked about this a few episodes ago, Daniel, this is a guy that is looking potentially at his final chance in 2026 to cement himself for the future. If he is unable to do so, then I think that the Cardinals may elect to move on because there's going to be other guys knocking at the door. But I think they want to see if they can unlock that 2024 version of Andre Palante that was really effective and one of the Cardinals' best starting pitchers before they just move on. And I think that has to do is a partial reason, at least, as to why I have Andre Palante in the opening day rotation rather than Richard Fitz. Those would be my final pieces, I think, of note when it looks to why I made certain decisions with this Cardinals roster and what it'll look like on opening day.
For me, yeah, I would love to see Palante bounce back to the way he was in 2024 because he's so dominant for us back there. But at the end of the day, like you said, Ethan, I mean, we have Richard Fitz if we need him. And I think Palante deserves that extra spot. And that if he doesn't perform, Richard Fitz is ready to go and to take it, or another guy as well. But right now, as we're recording on March 17th, 2026, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. We are 9 days away from opening day. And how fitting, because there's 9 players in your starting lineup, obviously not counting your pitcher. Who do you think those 9 players are going to be, Ethan?
Yeah, I have my opening day starting lineup looking like so. I have Mason Wynn leading things off. He'll be at short. Some people might look at that and say, well, why wouldn't you put a J.J. Weatherholt in at the top? I think that I don't know if there really is a good fit for the leadoff spot this year. If it was up to me, Wynn would be at the bottom of the lineup. Victor Scott would be at the bottom of the lineup. J.J. Weatherholt would be in the bottom half of the lineup. But someone's got a bat there, and I think Mason Wynn, out of the bats they have, profiles the best for now for that spot. So I'm giving it to Mason Wynn. I'm following Mason Wynn with Ivan Herrera, who some people would argue because of his bat, he needs to be in the cleanup spot. My argument is always you put your best bat in the 2 spot, and I think Ivan Herrera is your best bat. I have him followed up with the 2025 Silver Slugger Award winner, Alec Burleson, in the 3 spot. Cleaning up, I have Nolan Gorman, at least to start the year. We'll see how his bat translates from Jupiter to St. Louis. If it translates, then I like him in that spot. If it doesn't, maybe we see him move down and we see my 5-spot hitter potentially move into that cleanup spot, and that is Nelson Velázquez, who we've talked about at depth in this episode. He's proven worthy of the opportunity. He's a power bat. I put him in the heart of my lineup in the 5 spot. I have J.J. Weatherholt batting 6th. Some people would maybe argue that he deserves to be in that 2 spot, maybe that 3 spot, maybe the 5 spot. I have him in the 6th spot because it's a little bit less load-bearing, and I know everyone's excited to see him get the opportunity. And he's going to, but I think that at least to start off the year, put him a little bit lower in the lineup, give him some lower leverage at bats where the pressure isn't nearly as high, I would say, similar to how even they looked at Jordan Walker in 2023 when he did have success at the major league level. I want J.J. Weatherholt a little bit lower in the lineup, low leverage at bats for him, and hopefully we see him climb later this year. I would love to see him in the 5 spot or even higher in the 2 spot later this year. Rounding out the lineup, I have Pedro Pages in the 7 spot. I have Jordan Walker in the 8 spot, and I have Victor Scott II in the 9 spot. I don't think there's really much to take from 7 and 8 in my lineup. I think that's pretty clear. And Victor Scott II, I have in the 9 spot because that one seems pretty obvious too. Low leverage at bats, but almost acts as a second leadoff hitter, and because of his speed, I think he's going to profile well for that spot. I think we've seen some optimistic things from him. The hard hit rate this spring has been really good, excluding obviously times where he has bunted, which he has done several times this spring, and I think that's a great skill for him to continue to master because of his speed. If he is able to all of a sudden become a very good bunter, watch out, because teams are going to have to play him a lot more honest for that. But also, I mentioned the hard hit rate has been taking some good hacks this spring. So I'm optimistic as to what we've seen from Victor Scott II. Let's hope that the walk rate continues to climb and that he's able to continue getting on base at a higher and higher chunk, because if that's the case, then I think that it sets up the top half of the lineup really well with a guy, more times than not, you're probably going to be looking at in scoring position when he gets on base because of his speed. So that is my 2026 St. Louis Cardinals opening day starting lineup.
Well, before we wrap things up, Ethan, there's one more key aspect of that starting lineup that I would like to touch on, and that would be who's getting the ball. Who's starting who's opening the 2026 St. Louis Cardinals baseball season on the mound for the Redbirds?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear it's going to be Matthew Liberatore. I mean, you could give it to Dustin May if you're looking at who you think is the best pitcher in your starting rotation. Even then, I think Matthew Liberatore would have a pretty good argument for himself, but I think they're going to give it to Liberatore for the reason that he has been in this organization longer than May, and he wants that role. And you look at what he was able to provide in 2025, it's the closest to ace material that we saw in 2025 was what he provided in the first 1 to 2.5 months of the season. Fatigue started to wear in, to build, and the fastball velocity dropped off. I'm hoping to see a Matthew Liberatore in 2026 that is a little more built for the 162, has a little bit more built for 25 to 30 starts, where we don't see that velocity drop off. But for opening day, I think that he's the one that makes the most sense. When you look at talent mixed with longevity, Matthew Liberatore kind of seems like the obvious option to me. So I think he's who we're going to see on March 26th on the mound to start off the season for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, Ethan, I fully agree. I thought coming into this it was Matthew Liberatore, but I had to let you say it for the people. I had to get that out there and just make sure that everybody knew that it's going to be Matthew Liberatore, because maybe some people aren't following the Cardinals closely, thought maybe Dustin May would get a shot, maybe somebody else would also get a look. But hey, I'm happy with Matthew Liberatore. I'm excited that he's willing to take on this role as the opening day starter and hopefully as an ace down the road for the Cardinals. So I'm liking that Liberatore's getting the ball, and I like that starting lineup as well.
Yeah, and that hasn't been confirmed yet. That's just what I think will happen. And anyone that doesn't want that position shouldn't be pitching for this organization. It's the greatest honor and one of the greatest honors in baseball, I think, to take the ball on opening day for the St. Louis Cardinals, with all of the tradition, history, and festivities that go along on that day every single year. It'll be a fun one this year, as it has been in previous seasons, and can't wait for it to get underway. It's going to be a unique season for the Cardinals, but I think that there is going to be some good things to take away from it. I know I tend to be Mr. Optimism, but I said it earlier, and maybe that'll become my new thing. Hein Bloom has clicked refresh on the optimism level for me because of the messaging and the action that has followed. Hopefully that is going to continue following into 2026. He is Daniel Hinkamp. I'm Ethan Hannaford. This has been the Lou Sports Talk podcast on STL Sports Central. Like and subscribe to STL Sports Central. And because all of the content here, including us with the Lou Sports Talk, are on here and are providing you with the latest and greatest content for St. Louis sports. Follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at Lou Sports Talk _. Our winners have received their giveaways from our episode 100 giveaway. And I think we're going to be posting some of those pictures here in the coming days as well. Some exciting stuff planned for the start of the season, so be sure to follow us on our Spotify, our Apple Podcasts, the Loose Sports Talk on both of those outlets, so that you are not missing anything that comes through right here. For now, though, episode 103, that's a wrap.